Hello, greetings to everybody. I hope all of you are doing fine. So, welcome to this online lecture, and for today, we will be studying the chemical basis of life on Earth. But before we move on, please like and share this video so that we could reach more people, especially the students out there who are taking biological sciences, so that they will be inspired to be engaged in the sciences. And also, don't forget to follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Science Guy, Professor Jun Cahigal. Don't forget to click on that notification bell so that you would be updated on our future videos. Alright, so let us now proceed to our lecture on the chemical basis of life on Earth. So we will have to consider first the following major points. Now, one important point for this lesson is that cells are made up of atoms. Also, we will have to consider for this lesson that these atoms may bond to form molecules and compounds. And in the bonding of atoms, the electrons in the outer shell play an important role in the bonding of these atoms. And also in the bonding of atoms to form molecules and compounds, atoms may either share or transfer electrons during the bonding process. So those are the four major points for this lesson on the chemical basis of life on Earth. Alright, so for our first major point, we mentioned that cells are made up of atoms. And these atoms basically combine to form elements. Cells are composed of atoms, and atoms form elements. Now, what is an element? An element is the unit of matter having mass that occupies space, and since the atom is the smallest unit of matter, atoms cannot be broken down into its smallest unit by ordinary chemical means. Kasi napakaliit na ng atom, it is the smallest unit of matter. So, you cannot divide the atom any longer kasi napakaliit na niya. So, we consider the atom as indivisible. It cannot be divided or it cannot be broken down into smaller units by ordinary chemical means. So, that's how we define an element. And in the periodic table of elements, there are 92 naturally occurring elements, and 25 of these naturally occurring elements are essential to life on Earth. And we know for a fact that life on Earth is composed mostly of the following elements. So we have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. Plus, we have to consider also elements like phosphorus and sulfur. So don't forget the acronym SNOPS. So SNOPS means that life on Earth is composed of these elements: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Alright, so to continue, so here is the periodic table of elements. And again, as we mentioned, that there are 92 naturally occurring elements. So the rest are all man-made. And 25 of those naturally occurring elements are essential to life on Earth. And life on Earth is composed of the several principal elements like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And other elements like phosphorus and sulfur are equally important in the maintenance of life on Earth. Alright, so everybody kindly take a look at this table showing the different elements that naturally occur in the human body. So we have the following elements like I mentioned. So these are the 4 principal elements of life on Earth. So we have oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen that makes up 96.3% of all life on Earth. Then also we have the following elements like calcium, and we know calcium is important for bone development. Then we have phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium for our metabolic activities. Then also we have elements called trace elements like cobalt, chromium, zinc, silicon. So what do we mean by trace elements? Now when we speak of trace elements, these are elements that are required in minute quantities. Alright, like for example, iron and iodine. Iron and iodine are trace elements that are needed by the body in minute quantities or small quantities. But still, these are important elements for life on Earth, like iron. And we know that iron plays an important role in the formation of red blood cells because of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is iron-based. Kaya pag nilasahan nyo ang inyong dugo, lasang kalawang or lasang bakal because of iron. And iodine. Iodine is important for our metabolic activities. And the lack of iodine in our body will result to a condition called goiter. No? Yung lumalaki yung thyroid gland. So, lumalaki po yung ating leeg because of the lack of iodine. And good sources of iodine are seafoods. Alright, so those are the trace elements that are needed in small quantities but equally important in the human body. Alright, so those are elements like iron and iodine. Alright, now what about the behavior of atoms? So how do we determine the behavior of an element or the atom? So before we go into that, let us first study the structure of a typical atom. So an atom basically, again, is the smallest functional unit of an element. And an atom is composed of a central portion or section called the nucleus. And inside the nucleus are subatomic particles such as protons and neutrons. Protons, these are subatomic particles that carry positive charges, while neutrons are particles that has no charge. So they make up the nucleus of the atom. While the electrons, they revolve around the nucleus, much like the planets revolving around the sun. And these electrons, they carry negative charges. So that's the structure of a typical atom. Alright, so I hope everything is clear about the structure of a typical atom. So again, the atom is composed of a central portion called the nucleus, and inside the nucleus are protons and neutrons. And revolving around the nucleus are electrons. Electrons, they carry negative charges. Protons, they carry positive charges. And neutrons, they don't carry any charge. Alright, let us now consider the following atomic properties. And one of them is the so-called atomic number. Alright, what is the atomic number of an atom or an element? Now, when we speak of the atomic number, this refers to the number of protons in the nucleus of the atom. Or we can say that the atomic number is the number of positive charges in the atom. Usually, the atomic number can be seen in the upper left or upper right section of the symbol of the element. Alright, so you can locate the atomic number of an element in the periodic table. It is in the upper left or upper right, depending on the periodic table, upper left or upper right of the symbol of the element. So like carbon, for example. So everybody look at carbon in the periodic table. So carbon has the symbol C, and kindly look at the upper left or upper right section of this above the symbol. So there's the number 6. So number 6, that's the atomic number of carbon. Now what does that mean? It means that carbon has 6 protons, alright, in its nucleus. So the 6 there above the symbol of carbon means that carbon has 6 protons. The atomic number of carbon is 6. Alright. Okay, then we have also the term atomic mass. Now what do we mean by atomic mass? The atomic mass or the atomic weight of an atom refers to the number of protons and neutrons inside the nucleus of the atom. Alright, the total number of protons and neutrons inside the nucleus. Now, going back to carbon, so carbon has 6 neutrons. So what do you think is the atomic mass or the atomic weight of carbon? So we know that carbon has 6 protons and carbon has 6 neutrons. So total number of protons and neutrons, so 6 protons plus 6 neutrons. Alright, so that's the atomic weight or atomic mass of carbon. Alright, usually the atomic mass or the atomic weight of an element can be seen below the symbol. Like carbon, everybody kindly take a look at the periodic table and focus on the carbon atom. So above the symbol, you have the atomic number, which is 6. And below the symbol, you have there 12. So the 12 is the atomic mass or the atomic weight. Carbon has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. So total number of protons and neutrons makes up the atomic mass or the atomic weight of an element. Alright, now if the atom is neutral, assuming that all the elements are neutral, it means that there are equal number of protons and electrons in the atom. So if there are equal number of protons and electrons, the charges, they cancel each other out. So a neutral atom basically has no charge because the charges, they will cancel out because of the equal number of protons and electrons. So the atom has no charge. So we call that a neutral atom. Alright? But again, remember, protons are fixed in number. We cannot change the number of protons, but we can change the number of neutrons because, again, like I mentioned earlier, neutrons, they don't carry any charges. So we can actually add neutrons to an atom. The number of neutrons may vary. Alright, now let me give you an example of what this means. That protons, they cannot be altered. We cannot change the number of protons, but the number of neutrons may vary. Again, because neutrons, they don't carry any charge. Alright, so let us consider hydrogen. So everybody, can you take a look at the hydrogen atom? Hydrogen has an atomic number of 1. So what does that mean? It means that hydrogen has 1 proton. That's the nucleus itself. And assuming that hydrogen is neutral, so 1 proton, and also hydrogen has 1 electron revolving around that central proton. So that's hydrogen. The atomic number of hydrogen is 1, and the atomic weight of hydrogen is also 1. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the number of neutrons may vary because neutrons, they don't carry any charge. So let's imagine that we have a cyclotron machine, and this cyclotron machine can, let's say, add a neutron to hydrogen. So let's imagine we add a neutron to hydrogen. So what happens now to hydrogen upon the addition of that neutron? So hydrogen will be transformed, or it will be transmuted into a new element. And that's what happens every time we add neutrons to an atom. The atom turns into another element. So we call that transmutation. So what happens now to hydrogen? So hydrogen, upon the addition of a neutron, turns into a new element called deuterium. Now, everybody, look at deuterium and compare that to hydrogen. So deuterium has 1 proton, which is the same as hydrogen. So the atomic number of deuterium is 1, which is the same with hydrogen, in which the atomic number is also 1. But look at the atomic mass or the atomic weight. Now the addition of the neutron will make the atomic weight of the deuterium 2. So 1 proton plus 1 neutron, you have an atomic mass of 2. While hydrogen, having no neutron, has an atomic mass of 1, or an atomic weight of 1. So you will notice that these two atoms, hydrogen and deuterium, they have the same atomic number, but they differ in their atomic masses. Alright, we can still add 1 neutron to deuterium. So again, using a cyclotron, we can add another neutron to the deuterium, resulting in the transformation or the transmutation of the deuterium into a new element known as tritium or tritium. So everybody, can you take a look at tritium or tritium? So you will notice that tritium has 1 proton. So the atomic number of tritium or tritium is 1, which is similar to the deuterium and the original atom, which is hydrogen. Alright, but tritium has an atomic mass or an atomic mass or atomic weight of 3. So you have 1 proton and 2 neutrons. So atomic mass or atomic weight of tritium or tritium is 3. So comparing these 3 atoms or 3 elements, these atoms, hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium or tritium, they have the same atomic number of 1, but they differ in their atomic masses or atomic weights. Hydrogen has an atomic mass of 1, deuterium has an atomic mass of 2, and tritium or tritium has an atomic mass or atomic weight of 3. Such elements with the same atomic number as the original, but they differ in atomic masses or atomic weights, is what we call isotopes. Alright? isotopes. These are atoms of the same element, but they differ in the number of neutrons, but they share the same number of protons. So they have the same atomic number, but they differ in their atomic masses. Now, something happens also if we add neutrons to an atom. Now, adding neutrons to an atom will make the atom unstable, meaning that the element produces particles of energy. So they become radioactive. Such elements or isotopes are called radioisotopes that emits particles of energy. Alright, so let's take a look at carbon. The original carbon is carbon-12. That's the atomic mass, carbon-12. So if we add a neutron to carbon-12, it becomes carbon-13. And adding one more neutron to carbon-13 becomes carbon-14. And carbon-14 is radioactive. And in fact, carbon-14 is used in dating or determining the age of fossils. Alright, so again, upon the addition of neutrons to atoms, it makes the atom unstable. So they become radioactive. Such atoms are called radioisotopes. A radioactive isotope is one in which the nucleus continuously gives off particles and energy. It becomes radioactive. Alright, and radioisotopes, they play an important role, like they are used as tracer elements, as diagnostic tools. And also in the case of carbon-14, radioisotopes like carbon-14 are used in the dating of fossils. So those are radioisotopes. Alright, so at this point, let us now study the chemical properties of atoms. Now, what determines the chemical properties of atoms or elements? Now, the chemical properties of elements or atoms, they are determined by electrons. And these electrons, as we have mentioned earlier, they revolve around the central nucleus, just like the planets of our solar system. And the planets, they follow a certain path around the sun called an orbit. Now, the electrons, they also follow a particular path around the nucleus, which we call an orbit, or we call it an energy level. Because those pathways of the electrons, they contain a certain amount of energy. So electrons, they orbit around the nucleus. We call them orbits, or sometimes we call them shells. So everybody, can you take a look at this animation of the atom? So electrons, they revolve around the nucleus, much like that of our sun. The planets revolving around the sun. And these electrons, they follow a certain pathway around the sun called an orbit. But in the case of the atom, the pathway of the electrons around the nucleus, we call that energy level. And the energy level, as the name implies, contains a certain amount of energy. Alright, so the energy level of the atom are discrete levels of energy in which the electrons reside or they revolve around the central nucleus of the atom. Alright, so let us now go into the details of the concept of the energy level. So let's take a look at this model of the atom. And in this model, you will see concentric pathways around the nucleus. And again, we call those concentric pathways of the electrons shells. And also, since those pathways contain a certain amount of energy, sometimes we call those pathways energy level. Alright, and we can label these concentric pathways as follows. So we have the K shell. Alright, the K shell is the innermost shell of the atom. That's followed by the L shell or the second shell, the M shell, and the N shell or the fourth shell. Alright, and also in this model of the atom, we can see numbers. Now, in the K shell, there's the number 2. Now, what does that mean? It means that the K shell or the innermost shell can only accommodate 2 electrons. Why? Because the amount of energy in the K shell is only enough to accommodate 2 electrons. Now, baka magtanong kayo, Sir, pwede bang 1 electron lang? Pwede. Sir, what about 2? Pwede. What about 3? Hindi na pwede. Why? Because the energy in the K shell is enough to accommodate 2 electrons. Now, look at the L shell. So, in the L shell, there's the number 8. So, what does that mean? Now, it means that the L shell can only accommodate 8 electrons. So, that means that the energy level of the L shell is higher than the energy of the K shell because the L shell or the second shell can accommodate 8 electrons. Now, baka magtanong kayo, Sir, pwede bang 7 electrons yun? Yes. Pwede bang 6 electrons? Yes. Pwede bang 9 electrons? No, because the L shell has enough energy to accommodate only 8 electrons. Alright, the M shell can accommodate 18 electrons. The N shell or the fourth shell or the fourth energy level can accommodate 32. So if we will notice, as we go higher from K, L, M, and N shells, the amount of energy increases. So as we go farther away from the nucleus, the energy increases. Alright, now baka magtanong kayo, Sir, pwede bang 2 electrons yung first shell? Pwede bang 8 electrons yung second shell lagi? Or dapat pa laging puno yung third shell na 18? Well, it depends. No, depende yan. It depends on the atomic number of the atom or the element. Why? As we mentioned earlier, the atomic number is the number of protons of the atom or the element. And we know in a neutral atom that the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So, by the atomic number itself, pag tinignan natin yung atomic number, malalaman na natin, we can already determine the number of electrons of that particular atom. Take the case of carbon. Okay, carbon has an atomic number of 6. So, what does the number 6 mean? It means that carbon has 6 protons. And assuming that carbon is neutral, carbon also has 6 electrons. So, we need to distribute all those 6 electrons in their respective shells. So, dapat mapuno muna yung innermost shell, then pag puno na yung innermost shell, then pupunuin yung second shell, then, pag napuno na yung second shell, we will fill up the third shell. Depende sa number of electrons. How do we determine the number of electrons? Through the atomic number of the atom or the element. Alright, so before we go into that, let's have a recap. Again, the pathway of electrons around the nucleus is known as orbit, or shell, or energy level. Okay, because that pathway contains energy. Now, the first shell, or the first energy level, can accommodate a maximum of 2 electrons. Why 2? Again, because the amount of energy of the first shell or the first energy level is enough to accommodate only 2 electrons. The second energy level can accommodate a maximum of 8 electrons. So if you will notice, you have a higher number of electrons that could be accommodated by the second energy level. That means that the second energy level has a higher amount of energy. So as we move farther away from the nucleus, habang lumalayo tayo sa nucleus, the amount of energy increases. Alright, so I hope that is clear to everybody. Now, in chemistry, a particular shell is composed of suborbitals. And there are 4 suborbitals. We have S, P, D, and F. I'm sure you are familiar with this. So, the S suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 2 electrons. So, sir, pwede bang 1? Oo naman. Pwede yan. The maximum is 2. Alright? What about the P suborbital? The P suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 6. Sir, pwede bang 5? Oo. Pwede bang 7? No. Because the P suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 6 only. Alright. The D suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 10 electrons. Alright, sir, pwede bang 9? Pwede. Pwede bang 11? No. Because the maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated by the D suborbital is only 10. Alright? And the F suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 14 electrons. Alright? So, please memorize this. This is S, P, D, F. The S suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 2 electrons. The P suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 6 electrons. The D suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 10 electrons. And the F suborbital can accommodate a maximum of 14. Now, everybody, can you take a look at this? This is the so-called electronic configuration of the element. So, we have to fill up the first energy level first. Now, that's how we use the electronic configuration chart. So, we first fill up the first shell, then the second shell, then the third shell. Again, this will all depend on the number of electrons. So, how do we determine the number of electrons? By the atomic number. Because the number of protons, take note, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons in a neutral atom. Alright, everybody, can you take a look again at this electronic configuration chart? So what does the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means? So that refers to the shell number. So number 1 is the innermost shell, shell number 1. So shell number 1 must be filled up first. Kaya nandun yung first arrow. Then, pag puno na yung first shell, or shell number 1, then we fill up the second shell, number 2. So, you will notice in the second shell, or in the second energy level, there are 2 suborbitals. So, you have S and P. The first energy level, isa lang yung suborbital. That's the S suborbital. The second energy level has 2 suborbitals, S and P. The third energy level, yan yung number 3 in our chart. That's the third energy level. And the third energy level has 3 suborbitals, S, P, and D. Alright? And look at the fourth shell or the fourth energy level. The fourth energy level has all the 4 suborbitals, S, P, D, F. So, baka magtanong kayo, paano ito ginagamit? So, we will fill up the first shell. Pag puno na yung first shell, then we fill up the second shell. Look at the direction of the yellow arrow. So, ang una ay yung first shell. pupunuin muna natin yung first shell. Alright? Pag puno na yung first shell, pupunuin natin yung second shell. Pag puno na yung second shell, pupunuin natin yung third shell. Okay? Following the arrow, the direction of the arrows, that's how we fill up all the energy levels. Okay? But this will all depend on the atomic number. So again, the atomic number is the number of protons, and in a neutral atom, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So malalaman natin yung electrons na i-distribute natin in their respective shells through the atomic number. Alright, so let's take a look at this atom, the sodium atom. Alright, so sodium with the symbol Na. So as I mentioned earlier, yung the number above the symbol is the atomic number, while the number below the symbol is the atomic mass or the atomic weight. Pero in this case, since we are distributing the electrons in their respective shells, ang focus natin would be the atomic number. Alright, so here we have 11. So the atomic number of sodium is 11. So that means that sodium has 11 protons. Alright, and since sodium here, assuming that sodium here is neutral, then sodium has also 11 electrons. So gagawin natin, we will now distribute the 11 electrons of sodium in their respective shells using this electron configuration chart. Alright, so let's fill up first the first shell of sodium. Okay, so in the first shell, you have 1s. Alright, so the s suborbital can accommodate 2 electrons. So 1s2. Okay, so that means that the first energy level or the first shell is already filled up or full na yan. Puno na. Okay, pag puno na, then we go to the second shell. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, the first shell can only accommodate how many electrons? Alright, so the first shell can only accommodate 2. So puno na yung first shell natin sa sodium. Okay, so we move on now to the second shell. So if you will notice in our electron configuration chart, there are 2 suborbitals in the second shell. So S and P. So pupunuin ngayon natin yan. So 2s2, 2p6. The p suborbital can accommodate 6 electrons, diba? So 6 plus 2 in the second shell plus 2 in the first shell. So ilan na yan? 6, 7, 8, 10 na. So 10 electrons na yung na-distribute natin. Look at the atomic number of sodium, 11. So we have 1 more electron to distribute. So we move on now to the third shell kasi puno na yung second shell. So in the third shell, yan, look at the arrow. Susundin natin yung arrow, 3s. Alright? So we have here 3s1. Okay? The S shell can accommodate 2 electrons, right? Pero pwedeng 1. Ang maximum niya is 2. So 3s1 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2, ilan na po yan? Iti 11. So we have distributed all the 11 electrons of sodium. And this is the electronic configuration of sodium. 1s2. Sodium has 2 electrons in its first shell or first energy level. 2s2, 2p6. Sodium has 8 electrons in the second shell. And in the third shell, may third shell ang sodium. Sodium has 1 electron in its third shell, 3s1. So that's the model of the sodium atom. We have distributed all the 11 electrons of sodium. So sodium has 2 electrons in its innermost shell, 8 electrons in its second shell, and 1 electron in the third shell or the outermost shell. Alright, so I hope everything is clear about the electronic distribution or the electronic configuration of the sodium atom. Now let's take a look at the chlorine atom. So the symbol of chlorine is Cl, and kindly take a look at this. So above the symbol of chlorine, you have the number 17. So that number 17 is the atomic number of chlorine. Now the atomic number of chlorine is 17. Now what does that mean? It means that chlorine has 17 protons. And assuming that chlorine is a neutral atom, then chlorine has 17 electrons. And while the number below the symbol of chlorine, that's 35, that's the atomic mass or the atomic weight. But again, we are not concerned with the atomic weight since we are distributing the electrons of chlorine. Our concern is the atomic number. Alright, so let us now distribute the 17 electrons of chlorine in their respective shells following this electron configuration chart. Alright, so we have 1s. So the s suborbital can accommodate 2 electrons. So pupunuin muna natin yung first shell. So 1s2. Alright, so that means that the first energy level is full or filled up. Then we proceed now to the second shell. Pupunuin na natin yung second shell. And in the second shell, there are 2 suborbitals, s and p. So 2s2, 2p6. Yan, puno na. Alright, so 6 plus 2, 8 plus 2 in the first shell, 10 na, is 17. So, kulang pa tayo ng 7 electrons, alright, to distribute. So, we move on now to the third shell. Ayan. So, in the third shell, there are 3 suborbitals. So, 3s, 3p, and 3d. Alright, so let's just follow the arrows. So, 3s2. Alright, then susunod 3p5. O, 5. Kasi pag tinotal natin yan, 5 plus 2 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2, we have a total of 17. Okay, so with this, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p5. That's the electronic distribution of chlorine with 17 electrons. Alright? So the electronic configuration of chlorine is 287. So 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons in the second shell, and 7 electrons in the third shell. Alright, so that's how we distribute the electrons of the atoms using that electron configuration chart. Alright, okay, now to continue the chemical properties of an atom or the atom's ability to combine with other atoms will depend on the number of electrons in the outermost shell or the outermost energy level. Please take note of that. So, in the bonding of atoms, the ability of atoms to combine with other atoms, this will all depend on the number of electrons in the outermost shell. Alright? The outermost shell needs to be full for the atom to become stable. So, there's a rule in chemistry called the octet rule. So, the octet rule means that the outermost shell must have 8 electrons to become stable. Now, let's take a look at the atoms such as neon, helium, argon, krypton. Alright? So, in the case of those atoms that I mentioned, they have a full outer energy levels. And those atoms like helium, neon, argon, they do not interact with other atoms to form molecules because their outer energy levels are already full. Alright, so these are the so-called noble gases. So again, that's like what I have mentioned. This includes the following elements like helium, argon, neon, krypton, xenon, and radon. So these are the so-called inert or noble gases in which they do not interact with other elements or atoms. So that means that they do not form compounds. They do not form molecules. Let's take a look at helium. So everybody kindly focus on the helium atom. So the atomic number of helium is 2, right? So if we distribute the 2 electrons of helium, there's only one shell, 1s2. So what does that mean? It means that the first shell is already full. Alright, so if the outermost shell is already full, then that means that the atom becomes stable. That means that the atom do not combine with other elements. They do not form compounds or molecules. So helium is stable. Alright, so helium has an electron configuration of 2, 1s2. So puno na ang helium. Alright, let's take a look at neon. So neon, you have an atomic number of 10. Alright, so helium has an atomic number of 10. So the innermost shell has 2 electrons, 1s2. The second shell has the following, so 2s2, 2p6, so 8 electrons in the outermost shell. So that means puno na yung outermost shell niya na 8. So that makes neon stable. So that means that neon does not form compounds or molecules. Now what about if an atom is not stable? Anong ibig sabihin nun? The atom will combine with other atoms. Why? Kasi hindi puno yung outermost shell. Hindi niya na-satisfy yung 8 electrons. Like for example, sodium. Diba? Sodium has only 1 electron in its outer shell. So sodium needs 7 more electrons para mapuno yung outer shell niya. The same with chlorine. Chlorine has 7 electrons in its outer shell. So chlorine needs 1 more electron to satisfy the 8. So that means chlorine is not stable. Alright, so chlorine and sodium will have to combine with other atoms para maging stable sila. So in order to become stable, these atoms will either donate or give up electrons or gain or accept electrons. Such type of bonding is called ionic bond. Alright? So let's take a look at the following atoms, sodium and chlorine. So again, in order to achieve chemical stability, some atoms will have to give up or gain electrons. And in doing so, they have to combine with other atoms. Either they give up or gain electrons. So this is what we call ionic bonding. So we will go into the details of ionic bonding later. While some atoms, in achieving chemical stability, they have to share electrons between atoms. Such bonding between atoms is called a covalent bond. Alright? So again, if you will look at the sodium atom has 1 electron in its outermost shell. So sodium needs 7 more electrons to satisfy the octet rule, that the outermost shell must have 8 electrons. Alright? So, in this case, sodium must interact or must bond with other atoms in order to achieve chemical stability. So the union between atoms of the same or different elements is what we call chemical bond. And there are 2 types of chemical bonding. We have ionic and covalent. Now, bonding of atoms either create molecules or compounds. A molecule is made up of 2 or more covalently bonded atoms, while a compound is made up of a molecule or substance comprising different atoms or elements. Alright, so let's now take a look at the sodium atom and the chlorine atom. So let us now zoom in on the chlorine atom. Now, the chlorine atom has 7 electrons in its outer shell. So that means that chlorine needs 1 more electron to satisfy the rule of 8. Diba dapat 8 electrons yung outermost shell? Now, since chlorine has 7 electrons, kulang pa siya ng 1. Alright? Okay, let's take a look now at sodium, yung Na. Now, sodium has 1 electron in its outer shell. So, that means kulang ang sodium ng 7 more electrons sa outer shell niya. Alright, so that means that sodium is chemically unstable. It needs 7 more electrons. Alright? So, what we have here is the interaction between sodium and chlorine. Kasi hindi kompleto yung outer shells nila. So, pwedeng mag-interact. These 2 atoms, sodium and chlorine, can interact with each other. So, ano yung interaction nilang dalawa? Okay, let's take a look at sodium. Now, sodium needs 7 more electrons. So, 1 electron lang yung outer shell niya. So there are 2 possible ways of achieving stability for sodium. Everybody focus on the sodium atom. Either that sodium gains 7 more electrons para makompleto yung 8. Or sodium loses that single electron. So pag nawala yung single electron yan, i-donate yan o ipamigay, then mawawala yung 3rd shell. So pag nawala yung 3rd shell, yung 2nd shell becomes the outermost shell of sodium. Right? So 8 yung 2nd shell eh. So pag nawala yung 3rd shell, di 8 na yung 2nd shell, then sodium gains stability. Now, ang tanong, which is easier, to gain 7 or to donate or to lose 1? Now, in chemistry, gaining 7 electrons will require energy. Mas magastos yan, no? Than donating that lone electron. Mas madaling mag-donate, no, kaysa kumuha ng 7. So, sodium tends to lose or to give off or to donate that lone electron. So, the 3rd shell disappears, the 2nd shell becomes the outermost shell. So sodium tends to donate or to give off 1 electron. Alright? Now let's take a look at chlorine. So chlorine needs 1 more electron. Alright? So again, just like sodium, there are 2 possible ways in which chlorine can gain stability. Either that chlorine loses all the 7 electrons, so mawawala yung 3rd shell, so yung 2nd shell na magiging outermost shell, hindi naging stable yung chlorine. Or, chlorine can gain an extra electron. Alright? Para makumpleto yung 8. So, which is easier? To remove all the 7 or to gain an extra electron? Now, in the case of chlorine, mas madaling mag-accept ng electron, no? As compared to losing all the 7 kasi it will require more energy kasi kulang na lang ng isa. So, chlorine tends to accept an electron. Alright? So, the tendency of sodium is to donate an electron while chlorine tends to accept or to gain an extra electron. Alright, so everybody kindly take a look at this animation. So sodium loses an electron while chlorine gains an electron. Now what is the consequence of this donation and gaining of electrons? Now everybody remember that sodium has 11 electrons, 11 negative charges, and 11 positive charges. Alright? Now, since sodium donated an electron, so sodium loses a negative charge. So that means that sodium, after the donation, has more protons than electrons. Sodium has 11 protons and 10 electrons after the donation. So that means sodium now is not neutral kasi magkaiba na sila ng number ng protons and electrons after the donation. You get what I'm saying? So sodium now has 11 protons and 10 electrons. Hindi na balance yung number ng protons and electrons. In the case of sodium, mas marami yung protons niya kaysa sa electrons. So, this will make the sodium atom a charged atom. Sodium now has a positively charged kasi mas marami yung protons niya as compared to the electrons. Kasi ang protons ng sodium 11, ang electrons ng sodium ay 10 after the donation. Alright? Okay, so sodium becomes positively charged. And a charged atom is known as an ion. An ion is a charged atom. Now, let's take a look at chlorine. Now, chlorine, before accepting the electron, has 17 protons and 17 electrons. Kasi neutral siya. Pagkatapos niyang i-accept yung electron galing sa sodium, so chlorine now has how many electrons? So you have 18 now compared to the 17 protons inside the nucleus of chlorine. So that means mas marami ngayon yung electrons ng chlorine kaysa dun sa protons niya sa loob ng nucleus. So hindi na siya neutral. And since there are more electrons than protons, you have now 18 electrons and 17 protons that will make chlorine a negatively charged atom. Alright? So magiging ion din siya. Chlorine becomes a negative ion, while chlorine becomes a positive ion. Alright? So here is the rule. If an atom donates an electron, it becomes a positive ion. If the element or the atom gains an electron, then it becomes a negative ion. So this type of interaction between atoms wherein one atom donates and an atom gains an electron is what we call an ionic bonding. Alright, so this interaction between sodium and chlorine is called an ionic bonding. Now, what is an ionic bonding or ionic bond? Ionic bonding involves the transfer of electrons from one atom to another, just like in the case of sodium and chlorine. Sodium donated an electron while chlorine gains an electron. So sodium becomes a positive ion while chlorine becomes a negative ion. And we all know that positive is attracted to a negative ion that will result to the bonding of the two elements, forming a compound which we know as table salt or NaCl. So atoms may either gain or lose electrons. Like in the case of sodium, sodium loses an electron while chlorine gains an electron. Alright, and because they are not neutral anymore, they become ions. What is an ion? An ion is a charged atom or an electrically charged atom. So in the case of sodium, sodium loses an electron, so sodium becomes a positive ion. Na kasi mas marami yung protons niya compared to the electrons. Alright? While chlorine becomes a negative ion kasi nag-accept siya ng electron, so dumami yung electrons niya compared to its protons. So chlorine becomes a negative ion. So unlike charges, they attract, forming a compound called sodium chloride. Alright, so that's the case of sodium and chlorine in the formation of sodium chloride or table salt. So this is ionic bonding. Alright, like itong animation na to, no? Yung brown na aso. Ayan, tinonate yung kanyang buto dun sa bulldog. Ayan, so naging magkaibigan niya yung dalawang aso. Kasi yung brown na aso, tinonate niya yung buto niya. So yung bulldog naman, nag-gain ng isa pang buto. So nagkaroon sila ng friendship. Yun yung ionic bonding. One atom donates an electron while another atom gains an electron. Alright? While some atoms, hindi sila nag-donate or nag-accept. Instead, they share electrons. So this type of bonding wherein electrons are shared is what we call a covalent bond. Like in the case of these two atoms of hydrogen. And these two atoms of hydrogen can simply share their electrons, forming a hydrogen molecule or H2. Ayan, so like in this animation, yung dalawang brown na aso, no, nag-share sila ng buto. Ayan, so nagkaroon sila ng friendship. So that's what we call covalent bonding, wherein the electrons are simply shared, no, between elements. Now, there are two types of covalent bonding. We have nonpolar and polar. Nonpolar covalent bonding involves the electrons, wherein the electrons are shared equally, thus eliminating a positive and negative end of the molecule. Like earlier, we saw two hydrogen atoms combining to form a hydrogen molecule. So that's nonpolar. Alright? Now, what about polar covalent bond? Now, in polar covalent bond, the electrons are shared unequally, causing the molecule to develop a positive end and a negative end. So, pag sinabi natin positive end, the electrons, they spend less time in that atom. Pag sinabi natin negative end, that's where the electrons spend most of its time. And this will develop what we call in chemistry as electronegativity of the atom. Alright, so I guess we will end our video here. So in our next video, we will take a look at polar covalent bonding and the bonding of oxygen and hydrogen to form water. And in our next video, we will discuss the properties of water. What makes water unique so that water can maintain life on Earth. So, please don't forget to like and share this video para makarating naman sa maraming tao, especially the students who are taking biological sciences. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Science Guy, Professor Jun Cahigal. Don't forget to subscribe and click on that notification bell so that you will be updated on my future online lectures. So stay tuned with part 2 of this lecture on the chemical basis of life. We will study the properties of water. So long for now.